the city of Jerusalem. We'll say you guys right now are on the Mount of Olives. You're looking over the valley of Kidron right here, and you're looking up a hill. And the border around here would be the gates, the walls. Walls are somewhere around 15 to 20 feet tall. As you look across the valley at the city, it's going to look sort of flat like that, with the exception of where that book bag is, and that's going to be the Temple Mount. Now, today, you'll be able to tell it very clearly because there's a big golden dome that sits up there. That's the Dome of the Rock. It's a mosque for the Muslims. So you've probably seen that picture 100,000 times, so you kind of know what you're looking at. Well, as you're looking at the city and the Temple Mount, this area that runs right here is known as the City of David. Here are the southern steps where Peter would have preached that first gospel sermon, and you're looking at the City of David right here. Why do you say that? Well, because that's where our account takes place tonight. Sort of up on this mount, just past the City of David. That would be where the king lived. When we were there, we walked through a tunnel that was used to attack Israel, and we came out at this pool that we'll talk about tonight. John chapter 5, the pool is the pool of Bethsaida. The pool of Bethsaida has 5 porches on it. Interestingly, there are 2 pools there. And what we would look at is we would see kind of a lean-to shaded area all the way around the square that it would be, and then a shade in the middle. Well, they look at that shade in the middle and they say each of them have 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then that 5th one right there in the middle. And so here he is. Let's turn to John chapter 5, see if we can read for a moment. Does anybody want to read? Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, John chapter 5. After this, there was a feast of the Jews, and Jesus went up to Jerusalem. Now there in Jerusalem by the sheep market is a pool, which in the Hebrew tongue is called Bethsaida, because it has what? It's right there in your verse. It has what? 5 porches. So we're looking at this particular pool that ends up right in this generalized area. Now, look at verses 3 and 4. In these lay a great multitude of impotent folk, blind, halt, withered, waiting on the movement of the waters. For an angel went down at a certain season into the pool and troubled the water. Whosoever then was first after the troubling of the water was, as they stepped in, was made whole of whatsoever disease they had. I'd like for you to pay attention, especially to verse 3 and 4, because that doesn't seem like it jihas very well with the rest of the Bible, does it? There's 2 ideas in this particular verse. Either this is an addition by the guy who is scribing it, and he thought that's what happened, or the guy who is scribing it tells us what most people think are going to happen as the water begins to move. Regardless of what people think, or perhaps what this scribe thinks, it's kind of in direct opposition to who God is. Look over at Romans chapter 2 and verse number 11. You've probably heard this all your life. You probably just didn't know exactly where it is. Romans chapter 2, verse 11, the Romans writer, Paul, would write that God is not a respecter of persons. That is, he doesn't require something from Justin that he doesn't require from me. He doesn't require something from me he doesn't require from him. And so he requires from all men the same thing in order to be obedient. And if he sends an angel to move that water, why wouldn't, if Andy and I are at that pool, why wouldn't I just knock him aside and go on in? That doesn't seem to be very fair, does it? He's closer, I'm going to have to pull him out of the way. It doesn't follow the same pattern by which God heals people throughout the entirety of the Bible. What did the widow's husband have, or the widow's son have to do in order to get Elijah to raise that son from the dead? He'd have to make it to a pool somewhere. What did Naaman have to do? Did he not have to fight somebody for the opportunity to stand before God, to maybe get heard, to possibly be? No. This blind man is going to be healed in this chapter, but not the way that he thinks he's going to be healed. He's going to have a tough time. People in this chapter believe that once the pool waters start to move, that God will be working through an angel in this pool, and that's not right. When we walked out of the tunnel, guess what was happening to the water? It was moving. You ever been to the desert? You know? You ever been on a hill? Yeah. Water, does the air move a lot there? Yeah. Went to Andy's last night. We were up on a little ridge there. The wind was blowing through. Some folks were cold. It was wonderful. Thank you for that. The wind blows. I think it's every year we go there. The wind blows. You have any water sitting out there? Next time, set some water out there and let it blow, and then see if it'll heal you or something. See if it'll make you younger. See if it, maybe it will. See if it'll heal you or something. It's not going to do that. It's not how God works. And so whatever they think is going to happen when this pool water moves is not necessarily it. But consider this in verses 3 and 4. When the pool water moves, look at the people around that pool. What do you suppose they're doing? Scratching and clawing and pulling some people away and pushing some people out of the way. I had to be the first one to get in that pool. Well, what if you're this guy?
You need help.
You're going to have help. All he can do without help is watch other people get in the water he thinks ought to be for him. Would it be unfair of God to heal some people? This is a trick question. To heal some people but not others? Justin is, let's take a quick poll. Justin says yes. How many of you will get on board with Justin? He would. Okay. Is it okay if God, would it be unfair of God to heal some but not heal others? Hey, Justin says yeah. And I got that. Who says no? So the rest of you are saying, I'm not playing this game. Okay. God has the ability as God to do what he wants to do. I generally think when I think of that particular question, is it fair? I generally think of Paul. He asks 3 times to have that thorn in his flesh removed. Whoa, what? Did he ever have it removed? No. What did God say to him about that thorn in the flesh? He said 3 times, my what? Grace is what? Sufficient. What I'm going to give you and not take away this is going to be sufficient. So God has the ability to heal throughout the Bible whoever he wants to. This, however, doesn't follow that same pattern. There was a certain man there, this is verse 5, had an infirmity 38 years. There's a question here. Was he 38 years old? Or did he have it for 38 years when he started counting? The answer to that question is, who cares? He still had it for 38 years. We'll find out from his mom and dad that he's probably 38. But Jesus saw him lying there, and he knew that he'd been there a long time in that case. And Jesus simply asks this question. Let's change the words to 2024 Alabama. You ready? You want to be healed? The King James Version would say, Jesus would say the words, do you want to be whole? The idea, the principle is the same. Do you want to be healed? Well, obviously, he's laying at this pool that he's desperate to get into. He is at times watching others beat him there. Why is he at this pool? Because he has a what? You can say it. He's sick. He has an infirmity. If he didn't think he was going to be healed, if he didn't think he could be healed, if he didn't think it was worth it, he wouldn't be there. Jesus asks, in our minds, kind of a silly question, do you want to be healed? Obviously he does. Look at verse number 7. The impotent man answered him, Sir, I have no man when the water's troubled, put me into a pool. But while I'm coming, another steps down before me. He looks Jesus in his face and he says, try. I've tried to get down into that pool, and every time I do, someone steps over me and into the pool. That'd make you almost want to cut a fella, wouldn't it? What should you do? Should he just go, well, I guess it wasn't my time. Well, I guess I'm never going to be healed. I guess I'm the guy who's supposed to be sick. I guess God doesn't care about me. I guess the idea of the I guess game could go on forever as we try to figure out the very mind of God. Best of luck to you. I don't see it working. His complaint is, I can't get down there fast enough. You know, that's a legitimate complaint. If the water moves and God uses the water, uses an angel through the water in order to heal people, which never happens. God doesn't use angels to heal people, by the way. Interesting though. If you look through those 66 books that we just mentioned a moment ago, you'll see prophets, you'll see apostles, you'll see even preachers, localized preachers like Ananias. God uses to heal, but you don't see God using an angel to heal. Could he? He's God. He can do whatever he wants to do. He just chooses not to. His complaint is legitimate. I don't have anybody to help him. Nobody cares about me. Nobody sees me as me being in a need. No one has concern over me more than themselves. So, go back in your mind's eye a little bit to this pool with 5 porches. And see not only this guy laying there waiting to get in, but all the others too. How many are around this pool? I'm just going to use the idea of logic and say this. At this point, when this guy is speaking, there had to be at least 2. Why? Because somebody stepped over him. There's got to be at least 2. You can't step over somebody with just 1, right? Right? Somebody shake your nod. Are y'all still awake? Here we go. He's going to have to get in that water some way, right? What if he doesn't have to get in that water? I don't think he knows who he's talking to. A lot of times when Jesus speaks to somebody, they don't have a clue who they're talking to. Go back one chapter. That's toward the left. He's at another pool, right? He's at a well that Jacob dug way back yonder in Genesis, right? Okay, thank you, Lord. I appreciate that. Everybody's thinking like this. I'm not sure if that's right or not. If I say right, just shake your head. He's at that pool, right? He's there, and he's in the middle of the day. He sent his apostles off to get something to eat, and here she comes. And they begin a conversation, and he says to her, well, I sure am thirsty. And she said, well, I guess you are. If you, as a Jewish man, are speaking to me, a Samaritan woman, you must be thirsty. I'd like something to drink. But you don't have anything to drink out of. He goes on and bit by bit begins to reveal himself, to which she says, something seems odd. Seems like you're a prophet. Seems like you're a man of God. Let me ask you this. And she begins to ask a question. He says, I'll explain that to you. Go get your husband. And what does she say? I don't have one. Then she goes further to say, what? I've had 5 of them. Or Jesus says, you said rightly you don't have a husband. You had 5 of them, and this fellow that you're with, that you're shagging up with, he ain't him. Whoa. She still at this point didn't have a clue who she's talking to. She asked if he was a prophet. She began to ask spiritual questions. Still don't know who she's talking to. And she said, when the Messiah comes, he'll straighten it all out. And he said, woman, I'm him. He revealed himself finally, by the way, finally in a public setting to her. She goes back into Samaria and grabs everybody else, and he stays there and has a 3-day gospel meeting. Right? Stay with us for 3 more days. I will, and I'm going to teach you something too. A lot of times people don't know who he is. He'll go through crowds, they won't know who he is. He'll ask questions, they don't know. Other times people will follow him thinking they know who he is. Turn to chapter 6 in John. That's 1 chapter past 5. When you start in John chapter 6, about verse 63, and you roll through the end of the chapter, here's what you're going to read. Many of the disciples from that point in time, these are the ones who are following him, not the 12 handpicked. Many of those disciples stopped following him. Just went away. Why? Well, we thought you were the guy who was providing food. Well, I am. Just not spiritually. No, it's just not physically at times. Well, most of them would decide, well, I'm going to find my food and my drink and my needs provided some other place. Now, he does eventually turn to these 12 apostles, and he says this. I think it's about verse number 66. The phrase in the King James Version goes something like this: will you not also go away? When you begin to look at that particular phrase and the emotion that's captured in the original language behind that, you can see him looking at those hand-picked 12 disciples saying this idea: are you going to leave me too? Everybody else is walking away. Nobody wants to deal with me, even though they wanted to follow me so badly that they kept following. And now everybody's walking away. Are you going to go too? It might be one of the most raw human emotions that we read that Jesus would have off of the cross. Are you going to go too? What if the 12 handpicked leave? Do they have that opportunity? Speak shot right here. Do they have that opportunity? Yeah. What if they leave? Then who's going to open the church door? What if they go away? Does he pick 12 more? Is God's plan worthless now? What do they do? Some people don't pay attention to him even when they're following him. Some people don't know who he is. This guy in John chapter 5 doesn't even know who he's talking to. Isaiah 53. Isaiah 53 would let us know, the first 2 or 3 verses, let us know that Jesus of Nazareth is not, Jesus of Nazareth is not the Brad Pitt of his day. Is that a good looking guy? Who's the good looking guy nowadays? Come on this side, he's helping me out. Who's the good looking guy? You are, all right. Jesus the Christ, Isaiah 53 would tell us, is not, they don't come to him because he's attractive. They are, however, attracted to him for something. Oh, back already?
Like my crayons.
Class that up.
It
is. They are attracted to him by what he's teaching, not by what he looks like. And so when they begin to leave, seems as a personal affront to him. Well, in John chapter 5, when this guy doesn't know who he is, it's not as if they don't recognize who George Clooney is. He's just some other guy. He's just a regular looking guy. And he says, wouldn't you like to be healed? Well, obviously I would. That's why I'm here. Let's go back to John 5. And so when he asked, would you like to be whole? And the man said, obviously, look at verse 8. And Jesus said to him, arise, take up thy bed and walk. Let me explain something to you. There's no power in those words. I can say that to you all day. And if I say it and you get up and walk, even before I said it, you had the ability to do that. Here is the guy who does not have the ability to do that, and he has the ability because of the one who says the words, not just because of the words that he says. It's the authority behind Jesus. It has nothing to do with those words. My grandmother, my last living grandmother, died in November before we moved to Hot Springs in July. To be 6 years ago. We could exhume her casket. We could roll it right in here. I could say, arise and get up and walk. And you know what she would do? She would stay right there. You could do that exact same thing in front of Jesus Christ as he lived on this earth. And if he said it, she'd get up. Brethren, there's a difference. There's just a difference. Just because I tell you what Jesus said doesn't mean I have any kind of power whatsoever. So Jesus says to her, Jesus says to him, arise, take up your bed and walk, and here's your word. And immediately he got up, got his stuff, and left. Now, I want you to put the biblical account of any miracle against what you think you know and have heard about miracles today. She went to the hospital and had no complications with the pregnancy and had a labor of 49 hours, to which they eventually squeezed this young child out. And everybody looked at this child and said, it's a miracle. Guess what? It's nature. I don't know if you know this or not, but not only have people been having babies for 6,000 years, animals have too. Guess how they have them? Same exact way. There's a process before, there's a process that happens with the lady, out pops a baby, hooray, everybody's happy. Just happens that way. The miracle would be as if they had a sack of potatoes one day and they walked into their kitchen and there was a baby right there. The potatoes turned into babies. That would be interesting. Miracles happen when the natural process that God has established from week number 1 is overturned or changed somehow. Here's a man who has sickness, 38 years. You want to be healed? Yep. So immediately he's healed. He didn't take any medicine. He didn't have to wake up every day and take a pill for his back. Who takes pills every day? Yeah, don't you love that? Mm-hmm. What if I could lay my hands on you, Justin, and immediately you'd be healed and wouldn't have to take a pill every day? Justin's in for it. Guess what? Can't do it. You look, where do you want to start? Genesis 22. Let's start there. Abraham and Isaac go up on that hill. Abraham's going to offer Isaac. By the way, you can write this down somewhere in your Genesis 22. In chapter 22 is the first time the word love is used in the Bible, and the first time worship is used in the Bible. Interestingly enough, just put that aside for later study. I want you to go up here and kill this boy. I have a preacher friend who said, tongue in cheek, but there might be some truth to it, that he thought Abraham got up early so he wouldn't have to answer to Sarah about taking the boy up on the hill and killing him. I don't know, maybe. Is this boy dead when they're walking up the hill? Tara's shaking her head no. Anybody agree with her? Anybody want to disagree with her?
His father's mind, he knew he was going to do it.
Bingo. His father's mind, he's been dead for 3 days now. Now, is Isaac dead? No. To Abraham, is Isaac dead? Oh, yeah. He has that knife up ready, just running through. And what stops him? There's that angel that said, you better not. We'll go there in the bushes. I got something for you. Was he going to do it? I believe he surely will. I believe he cut that boy in half. Go to Daniel chapter number 4. Here's your miracle. Hananiah Mishael, and Azariah. What are their Babylonian names? Start with Shadrach. Right, that's it. The Jewish mama named them Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. You can say Hananiah, Mishael, Azariah, and Daniel, or you can say Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, and Belteshazzar, whichever one you want. They're all the same people. 90-foot tall statue, and you bow down and worship it, we ain't going to. You know how that story plays out. Eventually they get thrown into that fiery furnace. Do you remember the story or the monologue they have there, the dialogue they have there with the king before they get thrown in there? They said this: our God is able to deliver us, but if he doesn't, we are still, if he does not, we are still not worshiping your idols. If you'll back up in that conversation just a little bit, they're also going to begin it by saying this: we are not careful to answer you. We are not scared. We're not timid. We're not going to choose words. We're just going to tell you like it is. They put them into that fiery furnace. When they look in there, how many people they see? Remember what the king said? How many we put in there? We put in 3. Well, I see 4. And the 4th one looks like what? The 4th one looks like the Son of God. They pull these knuckleheads out of the middle of this fire and they don't even smell like smoke? You kidding me? We go over to Andy's house last night. He has a fire 50 feet away from us, and it's blowing into Iowa. When we get home, we smell like smoke. These guys have been right in the middle of it. So hot it'll kill the people putting them in there, and they didn't even smell like smoke. Are you kidding me? You tell me God can't do things and can't do things immediately? How about when Jesus is there and he's at the bottom of the boat and they say, wake up, we're going to die. He goes out there rubbing the sleep out of his eyes and he says, stop. And it's smooth as glass. It didn't take time for the waves to eventually quit rocking. Listen, he said, peace, be still. He said, stop, and it immediately stopped. This is the difference between an actual miracle and whatever wants to be passed off, passed off as a miracle today. Here's what's not a miracle. Sometimes tape doesn't hold. Sorry about that. We're not trying to kill you. Sorry about that. Immediately the man, this is John 5, verse 9, the man was made whole, healed, he took up his bed and walked, and here is the rub, ladies and gentlemen. Here it is. It's Sabbath. Now let me tell you about Sabbath, which would have been Friday night to Saturday night. So we're in a hotel just outside of the city of Jerusalem. At whatever time sundown is, and I guess they have it programmed in, the elevators begin at that point and they stop on every single floor. And you're not allowed to touch the buttons. They stop on every floor going up. They come back down, stop on every floor, and they go back up, and they come back down. Because the switch that you're pressing there that says number 2 or 8 or whatever it says on there, is a mercury switch. It causes a spark. You've created a fire. It's against the Sabbath. Now is that stupid? Check it this way. Yes. Here you have the big powwow that's going to come up of, I can't believe you worked and healed a guy on Sabbath. Is that really what we're dealing with? Are we really dealing with the fact that Jesus performed the miraculous on the Sabbath and they're going to be upset about it? Is that what we're dealing with? That's what you're dealing with. How many of you think that's a silly thing? That they're frustrated with that? Okay? Right? Anybody else? Anybody else? Will wants to jump in on this? It is. It's a silly thing. Yes, sir. It's a silly thing. They're going to try to hold the Son of God to a standard God made for people. They're going to hold the one who deserves worship by the rule of those who would worship him. Seems a little... Well, uh-oh. Tell them we said hey. Check out your entire book of Leviticus. Look through the last 15 or so chapters of the book of Deuteronomy where Moses rereads the law to the people. And you start there, and if you find it, call me. Don't text me. Call me right then, whatever time it is, and let me know where it is, where God has regulated what type of miracles man can do on the Sabbath. It ain't there. Why? Well, let's try this one. Raise your hand if you've ever done a miracle. All right. That's why. That's why. Man can't do it. There's now something different about this one that nobody knows his name. There's now something different about him who can heal on the Sabbath and immediately heal. And those who are in power want to stop him. What time do we go to?
You said 7:30.
But it wasn't the miracle that was the issue, right? It was the fact that he carried his bed, so he was working.
The infirmed man could have looked at that and said it would have been a necessary task for him to carry a bed home. It wouldn't have been a task he would have had to do if he's going to stop at 14 shops and then go home. But if he would have gone straight home, which the text seems to indicate, then that he would have been underneath the blanket of it's a necessary task. For example, your ox falls in a ditch on the Sabbath. Do you let it die or do you get it out? It's one of those kinds of tasks. Task on the Sabbath that's necessary. How many of you guys like to eat? Who likes to eat on day number 7? Oh yeah, we all do. That's a necessary task. Even one of those necessary tasks on day number 7 would be evacuating your bladder or your bowels. Those kinds of things would be seen as tasks, but a necessary task, so they kind of let that slide. Well, Jesus is doing something here that the religious elite hate, because he's backing up what he has been teaching, and they don't really like what he's been teaching. Now, let's go back and pick up what he's been teaching. We'll pick it up in very short order. Are you ready? What you guys doing, or you're not doing right, nor are you doing it the right way. That's it. You're not following the tasks right, and you're not following them the right way. So Jesus is coming and saying, hey, everything you think you're doing to serve God, that's a 0. And you're not doing it the right way. You should be doing it this way. So, they don't like it. They have yet, in John chapter 5, to say out loud, we want to kill him. But the thought surely where they say out loud, we want to kill him. But the thought surely is going around. Let's go just a little bit further. The Jews therefore said unto him that was cured, it was a Sabbath day, it was not lawful for you to carry your bed. Why? Because there's no regulation on miracles. Wait a second. So the guy who was sick for 38 years, the guy who was sick and was healed is at fault. Please try to make that make sense. The guy who was healed is at fault. Okay. Here's what he says. Then they asked him, what man is it that said unto you, take up your bed and walk? And he that was healed didn't say who it was, for Jesus had not conveyed himself away, or had conveyed himself away, and the multitude being there in that place. Afterward Jesus findeth him in the temple, and said, behold, thou art made whole, sin no more, lest a worse thing come upon thee. He didn't tell him who it was, because Jesus left. Jesus met up with him just a little bit later, and here's what he said to him. You've been healed. Now go and stop sinning and live a righteous life. Does that sound like anybody else that he healed? You remember her? They bring her, and she is nothing more than a pawn for them. They bring her in everything that she would or would not have on, being caught in the very act. And they throw her right down there in front of him. Under Jewish law, are they correct? This is a trick question. Is the woman in adultery supposed to be stoned? This is a trick question. I have yes. Anybody agree with Will? Mark does. You guys do. Uh-oh, you're wrong. Kind of. That they both are. So the question is, when you drop her down here and say she has to be stoned, the better question is, where is he? How do you know you're going to catch him in the very act? Well, set her up. Somebody knows. Somebody in that crowd who caught her in the very act knows who the dude is, even if he ain't there. I think he might be there. That's just supposition, and you can't take that in $1.50 and get Coke. That's just what I think. You can take that or leave it. When they drop her in front of him at his feet, they say she's supposed to be stoned. Well, what does he say? He that hath no sin, let him do what? Throw the first stone. Well, they lead from there, the oldest to the youngest. And then the interesting legal questions begin. He says to her, woman, where are thine accusers? She says, ain't none of them here. Jesus says, neither do I accuse thee. Why? Because under the law, he has to see it. Did Jesus know what she was guilty of? Okay. Did he see it? He cannot be an accuser underneath the law. He knew exactly. He told her the same thing he told this guy. Go and sin no more. Why does he do that? Why does he heal somebody of some sort of physical ailment only to tell them, straighten up your spiritual life and go get after it. Do what you're supposed to do. Why does he do that? Well, I think in the case of John 5, it could be that the physical handicaps of this man of 38 years may be hindering him from doing some things. It could be the case that he can't go make those sacrifices and he can't fulfill the law because he can't move. Maybe. okay though, right? God's okay with that. This guy can do as much as he can do. God's not going to expect me to fly out of here, is he? No, why? I can't do that. Why does he tell them, go and sin no more? Huh. Yeah. He went and told the others. Did the lady that they threw down in front of him who's caught in adultery sin? Yeah. Did the guy of 38 years of infirmity, do we know what he did? Hey, obviously he probably sinned at some point in time unless he's the Lord himself. Now, I don't know what he did. I probably don't need to know. Why tell him go and sin no more? He's teaching the same lesson, I think, to this guy as he's trying to teach to the spiritually elite of the day. Look, you haven't been doing this right, but you can. You can start and do these things the right way. You can start and do these things that would please God, but you're going to have to change some stuff. It's going to have to move one way or another. This guy goes, which one is he? Which one of all these is he? Y'all remember? He's terrified to trust him. Is that him? No, one of these boomerangs, which one of these boomerangs is supposed to be year one? Or verse, helpless to...
That's the one.
Helpless to what? Helpful. Hopeful. He goes from a position where he can't do anything to a position where he's teaching others about Jesus the Christ. Why? Because it changed. Was it only that? Could he have done the exact same thing without ever being healed? He could have. He could have told people about Jesus the Christ. He could have been hopeful without ever being healed physically. But it sure is a good jumping off point, isn't it? So what do you have that's holding you back? You have bad eyesight? Who has bad eyesight? We're going to start a club. Good. Who has really bad eyesight? Good. We're going to start a club. Good. I guess it was May. 8 years ago, May, I was 39 years old. And this little short doctor walks into a room and says, you're going to die this week if we don't do something. By the way, did I get your attention? So we did something, we fixed it, and I didn't die. Hooray. End of the story. Yeah. Sometimes the physical part of life gets in the way. But even had I died that week, the rest of the story goes this way. That was a Saturday afternoon, morning or afternoon when he said that. Sunday, the next day, I had all those doctors back in there. And I said, I need to talk to you about something. They said, okay. I said, I know I'm hooked up to everything apparently UAB owns. I need to leave for an hour and a half. And they said, you can't leave the hospital. What in the world is wrong with you? I said, I need to leave for an hour and a half. I'll go, and I gave them the address. I'm going right here, and I'm going right back. And they said, what's so important? I said, it's Sunday. That's what's so important. Well, it'll kill you. Well, I was going to die yesterday. So what? Short story is they didn't let me out. But one of them did sit and watch with me a live stream. So that was pretty interesting. sit there and watch it with me. Are there physical things that can hold us back? Absolutely. In the long run of things, will it really hold me back? Guess what? I made it through that week. I'm probably gonna die still, right? That's out there. At 48, this body doesn't do what it used to do. It probably happened, right? I might live to be as old as Kenneth. I might not. But eventually it's gonna stop. But I still have hope. I still live a hopeful life. How about you? Sometimes we can't see the forest for the trees. He was so bad off, and sometimes we're so bad off, we can't see the goodness of really how we have been living. It would behoove us to learn how to look past the aches, the pains, the problems of this life, and figure out how to be hopeful for eternity. And here's the way how. I'm not going to extend the invitation, but I'm going to tell you, here's how we are hopeful in eternity. Is we have to faithfully be obedient to God. It's a must. It's a must. That's how we can look into eternity and say, I know exactly where I'm going. I know exactly what my reward is. And every person sitting in this room right now who can hear the sound of my voice knows exactly what the destiny is right now. You know. Now, here's some advice for the week. You can change it if you want to. If you're not satisfied with it, you can change it. If you are satisfied with it, be hopeful about that thing. Be glad about that thing. If you're not, change that. And we're done. So, I think we stay in here till they come back. All right. I know I'm going to regret this question. Any questions?
Yes.
Oh.
Let me get my list.
I've got a question for you. If you do have those questions as we go through the week, stop me while we're going, or hold them to the end, whichever one you want to do. I don't care which way. And we'll answer those questions the best we can, and we'll keep moving through those things. Other than that, don't ask me this question, how do you know? I don't know. I'm only 46.